Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're starting the adjustment series of videos, and we're going to start with the throttle pedal. The next video will be about the brake pedal, and we're going to end the series with the clutch pedal. So I've got a lot of things laid out in front of you here, and I'm going to go over each one of them one by one and explain what they are for. So let's get started. Alright, so each customer will receive a bunch of different accessories included in this Ziploc bag. And I've got all the accessories laid out here in front of you, and I'll go over each one, explain what it is and what it's used for. These are two strips of UHMW tape. They are for the throttle pedal, and once we get to that part, I'll explain what these are used for. Each customer will receive a set of two for replacement if it ever needs it, yeah, we'll go over that when we get to that part. You'll also get a set of Allen wrenches, one 5mm, one 3/16, a 4mm, 3/32, and a 1.5mm. Now, the 5mm is for general adjustments. The 3/16 is for the tension adjustment. The 4mm is for the pedal face adjustment. The 3/32 is for the potentiometer adjustments. And the 1.5mm Allen wrench is also for potentiometer adjustment, but it's for the potentiometer arm. And when we get to that part, I'll explain in more detail how to do those adjustments. You'll also receive one of these little guys, and this is a special tool that we came up with to make adjustments to the bump stop and the potentiometer. And we'll go into more detail about that. You'll also receive an extra bump stop for the brake pedal, and when we get to the brake pedal video, I will go into more detail about that, what it's used for, whether or not you want to use it, and yeah. You'll also receive two extra bushings, one 60A, one 70A, and the brake pedal comes with the 60A and the 70A installed, just like this. Now you can also replace the 70A with the 60A, so you can have two 60As and you can have two 70As, or you can mix and match. Alright, so I have all my tools laid out in front of me for each adjustment. So the first adjustment that I'd like to talk about is the pedal face itself. Now, this is a relatively simple adjustment. I'm not going to take it off and show you each position, but you can kind of understand how this works. It takes the 4mm Allen wrench. You need to take these two bolts out, move the pedal face into any position that you like, put the bolts back in, tighten them back down, you're good to go. However, there's one small detail that you need to remember. There's a spacer that goes between the pedal face and the block that it's attached to. So don't forget to put that spacer back on. Alright, so the next adjustment that you can make is with the height of the pedal face. And this is also a pretty simple adjustment to make. All you have to do, there's four bolts. There's two on this side and there's two on the other. So just loosen these two. Loosen the two on the other side. And the pedal face will go up and down. Now, if you notice, there is the spacer in between the pedal face and the block that it's attached to. And the reason for that is so the pedal face doesn't bind on the pedal arm itself. So we added this nice little spacer for you. Alright, so once you get the pedal face the height that you want it, I'm going to leave it at the top because that's where I like it. I'm going to tighten them back down. Now, a word of caution here. These bolts don't need to be extremely tight. They just need to be snug. As long as the pedal face doesn't move, it is in the position that you like, that's all that's needed. Doesn't need to over torque these bolts. And that's it. So before you make a tension adjustment, you need to come back to the back of the pedal and loosen these two bolts. Now the reason for that, this back metal bracket back here is designed to swivel. And the reason it's designed to do that is because when you press on the pedal, this shaft goes through this back bracket. And when you make a tension adjustment up front, the angle of this shaft will change. This metal piece is designed to swivel so that it's always perpendicular with the shaft. So whenever you make a tension adjustment up front, make sure to come back here and loosen these two bolts. Once you've made the adjustment, then go ahead and tighten them back up. Now, I'm the type of person that likes a throttle pedal that's nice and firm. But right now, the tension setting is one notch lower than the highest setting. So I want to put it at the highest setting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the bolt, take the spacers out, move it up one notch, and then put everything back together. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, this requires the 3/16 Allen wrench and an 11mm wrench, which is not supplied. You'll have to supply that yourself. Okay. Let's take the nut and washer off. Take the bolt out. Let's take the first spacer out. I'll try to hold on to the other spacer, and I'm sorry if my hand gets in the way, so let's move it up one notch. Put that spacer back in, put the bolt back in. Let's see if I can get this spacer in with my two fingers here. Alright, there, push it in slightly. See if I can get it lined up. There we go. Alright, put the washer back on. Put the nut back on. And then tighten everything back up. Now this does need to be nice and tight. You don't want any play on the tie rod, so I make sure that these are nice and tight. Now after we've done that, you want to go back to the back of the pedal and make sure that you tighten the two bolts holding that back bracket that's designed to swivel. You just want to make sure that that back bracket is perpendicular to the shaft. Alright guys, so what I've done is create a mock-up in Photoshop so that I could give you a visual representation of what happens when you make a tension adjustment. So let's go ahead and rotate this, and hopefully you can see my mouse cursor. I'm going to change the center of rotation to be this back bracket right here, right where my mouse is. So we're going to go ahead and rotate, and as you can see, the back bracket stays perpendicular with this shaft. So for those of you that are a little bit confused on what I was talking about, this is what you want. You want that back bracket where the shaft goes through to always remain perpendicular with the shaft. Okay, so let's say that you're the type of person that likes a shorter pedal travel. So what we need to do is loosen this nut and then unscrew the bump stop so it screws towards the pedal arm. So let's take our special tool. We're going to go ahead and loosen the nut. Unscrew it a little bit. So now I'm going to unscrew the bump stop. All right, I think that's good. Put the nut back down. And then let's go ahead and tighten up the nut. And incidentally, this nut does not need to be very tight. There we go. Just make sure that the nut is snug. You do not need to over tighten this. Alright, so the next adjustment I'd like to make is with the angle of the pedal arm. So right now, the pedal arm is almost vertical. And what I like to do is get it to a more leaned back position. All we need to do is move these two nuts forward on this threaded rod. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 10mm wrench, and you could also use your special tool because this notch is designed for a 10mm nut. But I'm going to use a wrench today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this up. And you can always fast forward through this if you don't want to wait. Alright, so now that we've gotten this front nut screwed in just a little bit towards the front, now we're going to do the same thing to the one in the back. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit and I'm going to use my ratcheting end here. Okay, so as you saw, we moved the two nuts up this way on the threaded rod, and it brought the pedal arm backwards a little bit. So now we're in a more leaned back position. And you can take it to the extreme if you like and go all the way back, but I don't recommend that. Now there are a couple of consequences to making this adjustment. Number one is the bump stop. You're going to want to move the bump stop back a little bit because it's going to give you less travel if you don't. The second one is with the potentiometer arm. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about that. So I've been sitting here for about 20 minutes trying to figure out a good way of showing you the consequences of what can happen when you adjust the pedal arm angle a bit too far. So I guess the best way is just to kind of explain it in my own way, and hopefully you guys can follow along. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a bit of a demonstration on how this actually works. I'm sure you can probably guess, but I'll show you anyway. This shaft is connected not only to the pedal arm, but it's connected to the potentiometer arm as well. So when you press on the pedal, it also moves the potentiometer arm, and that's what gives you your feedback in the game. But what can happen is if you adjust the angle of the pedal arm back too far, and then the potentiometer arm starts right here, this potentiometer arm can actually go a bit too far. So the shaft will be pushing on the arm, but it won't have any more room to push on it, so it'll end up binding. So for me, what I do is, a good rule of thumb is to have the potentiometer arm start at a forward angle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the system apart here. I'm going to show you how to adjust it so that the angle of this potentiometer arm starts in a forward angle. Alright, so this is also a good opportunity for me to use my little special tool here. And you're probably wondering what this end is for. You know that this end is for a 10mm nut, but this end I haven't shown you yet. This is bolted together with a 440 bolt and a 440 nut. Now let's see, this is a 3/32. So 3/32 Allen wrench fits into the 440 bolt, just like that. and the hole on this end goes over the 440 nut. So just go ahead and take this off here. And I'm sorry if my hand is getting in the way. Alright, so take the bolt out, take the nut out, and you can see the nut fits right inside there. Go ahead and put that aside. And now we have the shaft off of the potentiometer. So now it moves freely. What you want to do is you want to have the potentiometer start right about there. That's probably good. Or maybe a little bit even further forward. Yeah, that's probably good, right about there. As you can see, the shaft is too far back, so it won't fit into this top hole. And the top hole is good for longer travels. These different holes, as you can see, there's 4 different holes to choose from. These holes that are further down, these are holes for more potentiometer travel. So let's say that you want less travel on your pedal arm, but you want to have a lot of resolution on your potentiometer. So what you would do is you would adjust it so it's still facing forward, just like this, but you would put it in a lower hole. And what that'll do is that'll make the potentiometer move a lot more with less travel on the pedal arm. So if you move this shaft up to the top hole, it's only going to move so much, and the further you go down, the more it's going to move. So, okay, let's go ahead and adjust this so that it's at a forward angle. You can also see that this is a fixed distance. This shaft is a fixed distance. You can screw these linkages in just a little bit and then screw them back out for further distance. But for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and remove this bolt, adjust it forward 1 more notch, and then it should be in the right position. So let's go ahead and take this bolt out. And again, I apologize if my hand gets in the way. All right, take the bolt out. And then we've got the nut. All right, set that aside. Okay, so now I'm going to make sure that's straight. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bolt back in the front hole. And then I'm going to very carefully try to get this nut on the end of this bolt here. It's not too difficult, but it can be a little bit tricky. All right, it's already on there. Then I'll take my special tool and put it on the nut and go ahead and tighten down the bolt. There we go. All right, so now we've got the shaft in the furthest hole away from the potentiometer. So let's go ahead and put the bolt back in the top hole here. All right, the nut's already on. We'll go ahead and tighten it down. All right, so as you can see, the potentiometer arm is now facing more towards the front, and that's what you want. That's what you want when the pedal is in its resting position, meaning that you're not pressing on it. So let's go ahead and try this out. There we go. Also, it's probably a good rule of thumb that the potentiometer arm does not go below this edge. If you see it go below this edge, then it's probably going a little bit too far. All right, I think we've got it adjusted just about right. Let's say that you wanted to adjust the pedal angle back to more towards the front to where the pedal arm is more vertical. Well, what you would do is you do this in the reverse order. So you would adjust it, you would take this off and then move it towards the rear but making sure that the potentiometer arm is still facing more towards the front. Now again, this is a consequence of making a pedal arm angle adjustment. You always want to make sure that you watch out and see where this potentiometer arm is in relation to the adjustments that you've just made. So like I said, a good rule of thumb is to make sure that the potentiometer arm is facing more towards the front when the pedal arm is in its resting position. So let's just say, for example, you need to take off the potentiometer arm for whatever reason. So let's go ahead and loosen this set screw. Let's see, let's go by this side. Alright, so the Allen wrench is in there. We're going to go ahead and loosen the set screw. I'll take the Allen wrench out. And now you can see that the arm is loose on the shaft. So now we can make any adjustments that we want. We can turn the potentiometer if we like. We can adjust where it starts and stops. Or we can take the arm off completely if we need to. But I'm going to leave it where it is for now. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten the screw back up. I'm going to go ahead and tighten it back up. And that should be it. Along with other adjustments that you may make on these pedals, you don't want to tighten this down too much. You just want to make sure that it's snug around the shaft. So the last thing I want to talk about is the use of these two strips of UHMW abrasion-resistant tape. Now during the assembly process, we installed two strips of this tape onto the outer surface of this plastic tube. Now this tube by itself is really smooth, but it does have some minor imperfections, so we decided to use this UHMW tape and place it on the outer surface. Now this tape isn't just your normal tape that you would find at your local hardware store. This tape is normally used on things like conveyor belts in manufacturing plants, and they use it, what they do is they line it on the sides of the conveyor belts and they use it as slides. And the reason is that this tape is very slick and it resists abrasion. Now the throttle pedal comes with the strips of tape already pre-installed. So the two strips that we're going to give you are replacements. Now installing it is actually pretty simple. So you just need to make sure that the plastic tube, once you've taken it off the pedal, make sure you clean it well, make sure it's free of debris and dust. Take one strip of tape, remove it from the plastic, move it from its backing. Place it on one side of the tube. Make sure it's even on both ends. Go ahead and force it down on both sides. And make sure you get most of the air bubbles out. Small air bubbles are not really going to matter, but just make sure it adheres to the plastic tube evenly along its length. And do the same thing with the other strip on the opposite side. Now you'll notice that I've got some grease and a small brush. So when we installed the plastic tube on the pedal during the assembly process, what we did was we put the tape on and then we coated the outer surface of the tube with the grease. So what you want to do is after you get the two strips of tape installed, make sure you coat the outer surface with plenty of, what we use is white lithium grease, and that seems to work quite well. You can also just take the brush and some grease and just go over the outer surface while it's still on the pedal itself. If it's making any kind of noise, or you can hear some scraping or rubbing of any kind, then just go ahead and take some grease and coat the outer surface with the brush, and you should be good to go. Alright guys, well I think that about covers it for all the adjustments on the throttle pedal. some of the adjustments are going to transfer to the clutch pedal. So when we get to the clutch pedal, I'm going to leave out certain portions because some of the adjustments that we made today on the throttle pedal apply directly to the clutch pedal. The next video we're going to be doing is the brake pedal, so make sure you stay tuned for that. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can contact me on YouTube, or you can contact me directly on the forums, or you can send me an email directly through the website. Alright guys, we will see you next time.